Hello and welcome back to the Get Stuck In podcast. We've been away for a little while and a couple of things happened whilst we were gone. Not that much. It was a pretty quiet couple of days. Obviously that isn't true. Obviously, probably the biggest 72 hours in football, of my lifetime, but probably ever. All the European Super League nonsense has gone down. We were going to do a pod as it happened, but we just had some stuff to get done with uni and that, and then we were like, it's moving so quick, let's give it a few days to see what happens. So now it finally seems to have calmed down. The English clubs at least, went in and came back out. So all the top six in the Prem have come back out. Chelsea were the first to come out. Chelsea had the first protest, and not because of that, but we thought we'd get a guest on who's already been on the show, so it's going to be a slightly more informal show with a bit less of a structure. We're just going to chat about the future of European football. So we've got Harry on from a couple of weeks back, the Chelsea fan. If we just go straight in with you, how do you feel basically about Chelsea's entire involvement in this process?
Firstly, it's nice that you got one of the saviours of football on.
Were you there? Were you there at the protest? I didn't know.
No, I was not. I was not at the protest, mate, unfortunately. But how did I feel about the involvement? I thought it was, to be honest with you, obviously it's just as disappointing as if you're Liverpool, Man United, in my opinion, because you're still kind of betraying the kind of aspect of the fan aspect, which is important. But it was kind of obvious that like Chelsea and City just kind of tagged along because they didn't want to miss out on this crazy money that they were all going to get.
Yeah,
It wasn't unexpected, really. I think the six all pulled out. I think the only one we we took the piss out of basically Spurs because they have no real right. I mean, Everton have more of a right of being there than them.
Forest and Villa do as well.
Forest, yeah, Villa. Ajax, more titles weren't even in it.
Not a league title since 1961.
Yeah. But aside from, I think we all sort of, when the names came up, we were disappointed, but not that surprised that, clubs of our size took this opportunity with venture capitalists in charge. It's not really that much of a surprise that they jumped, thinking that this was a massive opportunity. And if it had gone through, it would have been. But that doesn't make it any less shameful. It was an anti-competition proposition for me, just completely anti-competition.
Where do you stand? I was gonna say, where do you stand on? Obviously, their main idea was that fans want to see better games. Where do you stand on the idea of Real Madrid, Man City every week?
I'm gonna pull the wool over his eyes. Absolutely. I'd say if we weren't doing a pod, I'd say. But honestly,
I think we'd all like to see Mason Mount strutting his stuff every week against the European elite. But even I can agree that obviously, of course, that element of competition is what makes it special. Do you know what I mean? The fact that you can get like West Ham, I think jamming their way to a little top four, and hopefully we'll beat them this weekend. But you can have that kind of those little success stories. I think that's what makes it special. That's what makes you really care about it. It's not that you can see Real Madrid playing PSG every week, which, to be honest, doesn't get me that excited anyway, more than seeing it once, because it like I don't exactly admire people like Perez and like the PSG owners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the values that they kind of go with. But I suppose it's a bit hypocritical coming from a Chelsea fan, but still.
He seems like the one. Perez, just like, obviously they've been talking about certain clubs within the 12 were sort of the main pushers, but he seems like the guy that is just him and the Juve guys at Agnelli, like they are just going for it, and he's not letting it go even now. Like he keeps coming out.
Even Laporta as well at Barca said it was...
Well, yeah, I was going to bring this up. Have you seen that?
Like financial trouble once.
But they literally, I saw someone saying like he's the one owner who has an out. He can be like, I wasn't involved. Like I kind of got here. The wheels were in motion, and then I think he's come out and basically said like, yeah, it needs to happen at some point, and like it kind of should have. So I feel like he's just shot himself in the foot basically. But yeah, obviously, I wanted to bring up something. Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher sort of became heroes to a lot of people in this little period of news. Where do you guys stand on their role and everything? What did you think of their call to action?
I like it. I mean, it is good that they called them out. I think there's obviously a bit of an issue with them working for Sky. I think you pointed that out. It's quite a big thing. I mean, it certainly helps because they're probably the two most recognisable figures at the moment in terms of punditry in English football. So they needed to call it out, to be quite honest, to get the wheels rolling. Not only from a fan perspective, but to sort of discourage it at a sort of commercial level. To say, like, I mean, did they both come out and say that they wouldn't work on it? I know one of them did.
Carragher did, didn't he?
Yeah, he said he wouldn't.
That's only because he was really asked the question. I think that Neville would have said the same thing.
Yeah. So obviously, there's a big issue in that they work for Sky, and Sky is not in a good position when it comes to that. But I think you appreciate the support they had for sort of the fan bases, and they understand what it's like. I mean, they all grew up within, and they grew up within the academies of their clubs. They're both one club men, and I feel like
Carragher's an Everton fan as well.
Yeah, no, I knew you were going to say that. in terms of his playing career, he's a one club man.
Yeah, just like Harry Kane, man.
Yeah,
he loves Arsenal through and through.
But yeah, I think you can only applaud them for, standing up to it. I think if they'd taken the opposite stance, it probably would have gone ahead by now. So yeah, that's my view on it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, I was in all that stuff. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about Sky and how hypocritical it is, effectively talking about it ruining money and involvement and all that things. But I think this is just, I think a lot of been talking about sort of the lesser of two evils with all the UEFA stuff and the Super League. But we've sort of said this is one of the bigger areas we want to come on to, is this new Champions League format. Like, that it is the lesser of two evils on paper. Like, the Super League was so anti-competition, but it's just so bad. And I think, isn't it Gundogan's come out now and publicly said he does not want this and he wants people to get behind it. Do you think this wave of like football fans uniting behind the movement, do you think this will continue to affect this, or do you think this Champions League format is being put through now? Do you think it is locked into? I think it's 2024 it's meant to come in.
I think what's interesting, first of all, is that there seems to be, I think it's going to happen in that there's going to be a fan voice in each club on the board at some point, because I already saw today the I think it's Spion Cop, 1906. I think it's the guys who do the banners at Anfield.
Yeah,
they sent an open letter to the Liverpool board, basically saying we want a member on the board, a fan, someone.
Arsenal did the same thing. I'm trying to do the same thing at that meeting with Kroenke, didn't they? Yeah,
I think that you're going to need, if you're going to move things the other direction, as much as obviously the fan sport has destroyed the Super League. Let's be clear about that. But to continue doing so is going to help if you have a system where clubs have fan involvement, because we don't have any at the moment at the elite level in England. And sorry, it was a question I went off on a tangent.
I don't know what the exact question is, but like you're kind of talking about the 50+1 rule, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which obviously in Germany, which if you don't know, is that the commercial owner can basically only have like 49%, and then it has to be the fan vote is the 51. The thing I just don't have any hope for it. Like, obviously I have no information, but the events of this week, and I know there's loads of people have been talking about it, but there's all the quotes from Wenger the last 10 years where he's like, this is coming, it's just a case of when and not if. They're going to try and break away. And I just think, you mentioned that Kroenke, I think he was at like a fan forum, and people were very critical. They were outright saying like, we think what you did was awful, we want you out of our club. And he just kept spinning the PR consistently, just giving these responses which literally meant nothing. He was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we love and care about, and he like froze in. I said before the pod, he froze in a line about how fans like watching Arsenal play Stoke on a cold Tuesday night, and it's like, I hate watching Arsenal play Stoke. Stoke literally is Arsenal's rivals somehow for no reason. Like, they hate us and we hate them. So it's just like everything about it is like so obviously someone said, oh, if you chuck this in, it will really get some sway, and it
Well,
just
Yeah.
didn't land at
Machine
all.
is
And
a
I just,
good word. I've seen the headline of was it Josh Kroenke?
yeah,
Josh Kroenke, yeah. The headline of there's big investment to come. I've
yeah,
seen that
yeah,
every year at Arsenal.
yeah.
I've seen that headline every 6 months.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
awful.
There was a headline today about, I think Goldbridge put on Twitter, there was a headline about Ronaldo and United again. They're sticking these headlines out now, so just respect everyone. I mean,
Yeah. But
Ronaldo
on the Chelsea app, there's been like there's usually like, you know, the gossip column on
Yeah.
BBC, and
Yeah.
just the classic thing, wake up, quick, look at the gossip column, like but they've been sending out all these notifications like Blues linked with midfielder, you know, and if you look on the app and stuff, it is distracting fans, which is kind of my worry, that you know, that people just think, oh, this is a victory for football, rather than everyone still staying together and uniting against the fact that UEFA really are almost just as bad.
No, they are.
Yeah.
And you know, if people just think this is a victory and that's it, I just think you need to keep on it, and you know, keep, you know, moderating how it happens, you know.
Yeah, I feel like we should explain the new Champions League format, just so. Well, it's 36 teams, isn't it, instead of the normal 32? I think all in one league. Top 8 qualify for the quarterfinals, I think. And then they do the knockout from there.
Yeah.
And then you have automatic places for those that don't qualify in their league. So like Liverpool finished like 7th, and they'd still.
Well, have you seen this? So I this is still bad. So when it first came out, I think the way it was mainly explained was basically that isn't there 2 wildcard spots, which is basically the teams with the highest coefficient points who don't qualify. Apparently it is actually not that this is any better, but you have to qualify for the Europa League or the Conference League. So if you finish like 10th, you won't get in. So you do still need to qualify for Europe, and you almost get like bumped up, but like it's still awful. It still completely defeats the point of trying to qualify. And I think some people are saying that like if you can get rid of those places, I think we talked about this before, I just think it's laughable that they call them wild card when it literally means get the same people in every time. Yeah. Yeah.
It is literally like a basketball. That's literally what it's like with the top 6 and the quarterfinals and all that garbage. You know what I mean?
No, it is. It's like having 2 conferences or 1 conference, and top 8 make the playoffs, and then you get to the finals.
Except I mean, that wild card thing though, like to me, if you said, right, we're having the Champions League, there's a wild card, that means you're just going to chuck in Burnley for no reason. You're just going to be like, here's a Burnley, here's whoever. Like, it's a proper, why is he in there? This is sick. Not Liverpool got 8th.
It should be like,
so dumb.
You use like tennis, for example, they chuck in wild cards for ranking, like players that are way low down. Like Wimbledon will chuck in a few British players every year that are like way lower down the rankings so they can play. It should be like that. You gotta add teams that don't quite make it, but they've done really well. Like Southampton when they finished 7th a couple of years ago, or Wolves who finished 7th.
Yeah, I got an interesting question. So obviously, as you mentioned, there's 36 teams now, and there's like a different format. Do you know how many extra games a season there are?
100, isn't it?
Yeah, 100 extra games a season to fit in.
To be honest, I'm already a little bit bored this year. It's the first time in a while that I've been like.
Yeah, this is something I wanted to mention as well, actually. You know, Gundogan we mentioned put out saying it's so much for the players, which obviously I think that's been a thing for the whole pandemic, is like no one seems to care about the well-being of the players. I was listening to some podcast and he said he's kind of joking, but he's kind of not. There's like energy for fans as well. Like you cannot keep up with how much football has gone on through some of this pandemic. There have been weeks where there's games where I'm like, a year ago I'd watch all of these, and you just cannot keep up. And now they're like, we're gonna add more. Now we're gonna make it 3 games in an international break. Like it's just
I remember
so saturated now.
Start of the season when we had the Carabao Cup as well. there was a game, at least Premier League, FA Cup, or League Cup, on every day until about November.
Yeah.
Every day, like
Yeah.
Monday to Sunday. Didn't
Yeah.
matter.
Oh, yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I remember they announced. Do you remember? I don't know how long it was going. Maybe like 2 years when they announced there was going to be Friday games in like
Mm.
a year or two's time, and I was like, "That's crazy." Every week now. I mean, it's Friday. We're recording this. Arsenal playing tonight against Everton. Like every single week, there's a game every day, and I'm like, you just check your phone. You're like, oh, there's randomly just Southampton, Everton. I'll
Yeah,
watch that. And it's
So
just
I forgot
I mean,
the Super League stuff going on, but I forgot Brighton and Chelsea were playing.
crazy.
Completely forgot, and I saw it the next day, and I was like, "Oh, that's a good result for us." So I was like, "Oh, okay."
we were never going to win that game.
No, I didn't think you were gonna. I did. I was quite.
They
Shocked.
won, to be honest.
I was quite shocked that Liverpool were winning when up until the 86th minute. I thought we were destined to draw, and we did. So yeah,
Nearly got away with it.
yeah, we did nearly get away with it. We were shocking second half, but yeah.
Should we talk about another big talking point from this now that the clubs are back in, or at least backed out of this new project? The punishment or lack of a punishment for these teams. I think I just saw a news article before we got on. Apparently, UEFA aren't going to punish any of them.
What a surprise!
Obviously, wait and see what the Premier League do. But where do you stand? Do you think point deductions and things like that should come into it?
I think so. I'm not having I know I'm happy to say it as a Liverpool fan. I think we should all take some.
I mean, this season or next season?
Either or, don't really care. Probably next season.
I don't know.
Tends to be what happens, but I think
I don't think the fines. I don't think points deductions are a good idea because you end up punishing the players and the manager.
I'm not having that. The amount of teams that get punished down the EFL for the slightest financial issues or the slightest issue in general. Like I think they got a 12-point deduction at the start of this season. I can't remember what it was for.
Yeah.
Wigan got one last year, and that got them relegated after finishing about 14.
Yeah.
So I'm not having it. It's one. Either you don't do it, or it can't be one rule for the elite teams. It's just then playing into the European Super League argument, in my opinion.
Yeah. See, I think there should be. I think there should be deductions. I think the only reason I would argue, I think you are right. I think it would be a case of like the elite and non-elite if they didn't. But I think the only argument you could maybe have is like it was quite a conscious decision from the owners, whereas like a lot of the clubs that have been done for like bad finances, even though they're bad owners, they probably weren't like planning for that to happen. Like it kind of comes about and they probably didn't deal well. But like this was like the owners being like, and also it's just a different. It's like unprecedented, isn't it? But yeah, I think. I mean, the thing for me is I'm in a bit of a luxury spot because it doesn't matter for us because we've been awful. So if unless it's such a big ban, such a big deduction, we get relegated, which I don't think I hope it would be.
Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea in the Championship.
Yeah, but like I'm sure Man City fans are probably thinking definitely like, oh, please don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should, but I have to say I don't think it will. I think it is that elite thing. I don't think
it's such.
Yeah, I don't think they'll get points deductions. But I don't know. I just find it a bit awkward. This, the whole thing. How much disproportionately it affected the players and the managers as opposed to the owners. This whole thing, and I think, that I just don't think we should lose the fact that the players and the managers are pretty much innocent in this. Like you can't say to them, "Oh, don't accept the 200k wages." You know what I mean? Of course, they're going to say yes to that. I think we've got to find a way to limit the owners because they are the ones who made the decision. Like John Henry his name is or something like that, and his little gilet and all that sort of thing. And he needs to be punished, and as do the Glazers. It's just finding a way where you can actually do that as well.
I think that's maybe the way to go. If we're going to go down that route is with all sort of punishments within the Premier League and the EFL. You're looking at punishing the owners solely if it's them the one that have made the mistakes. Punish the ball, punish the owners, but don't punish on the pitch.
Yeah,
fine or a something that will affect the owners solely. And that probably is entirely. But the issue is a lot of these owners have so much money. Any fine is not.
Yeah.
So that's the flip side of it. But I take your point with it. But
maybe just go in so strong so it just doesn't happen again.
no, that's the other thing. Like, if you properly go in hard, proper deterrent, you can maybe see these owners not even thinking about it, because these owners just don't understand how football works in general, in terms of the sort like the soul of football. I don't like to sort of like that, but fans to me seem very different within football than they do in a lot of sports, especially American sports. American sports franchise based, no relegation, no promotion, and they've tried to do that here. And it's not just American owners; it's all the owners. And it's just they don't understand how fans band together, whether it's in South America, whether it's in Europe, or whether it's in another footballing country. I don't think they expected the reaction they got.
Well, I was going to
take a reaction.
Did you see? I think it was the Brighton chief executive, not 100%. One of the chief executives. They had like a meeting with all the others, and I think he said Daniel Levy, but I could be wrong. It was one of the top 6 involved ones said to him that basically they didn't expect this bad a reaction. He was like, "Yeah, we just didn't think it's going to be this bad." Like I guess he just thought people would get on board with it. But I saw someone else just quoting like a general quote that was like, people saying, their owners, they're these billionaires, like they're gonna be very clever and very switched on. But like it's kind of baffling at how much they overlooked this. Like this surely had to get like the fact none of the managers knew, none of the players knew. Apparently Boris Johnson wasn't aware of it, which we talked about before. Now there's this story he's met with Ed Woodward and stuff like that, but it just seems so badly planned for something that it had 3.5 billion behind it, and they didn't think fans would go, "No, I don't like that."
The press release looked like it was done by a 10-year-old. Genuinely, the little logo in the corner looked like just trash, garbage. Like it was so badly planned. Like apparently all the players and stuff only found out on the Sunday, and it was just like, and then suddenly they're all wheeled out in front of the press. There's all this fan outrage, and it's like, oh, Jurgen Klopp, what do you think of the fact that everyone doesn't like this, but you can't really say that you don't? Do you know what I mean? And they were expected just to be like, yeah, cool. Do you know what I mean? It was so badly planned.
Yeah, no. I think that was one of the things I watched Arteta's press conference on it, and I was quite surprised at how, like, obviously he's kind of contractually obliged to not speak out against the owners that much, but I was quite surprised when he was asked about there's sort of a planned protest tonight outside the ground. He was quite sort of, fans have the right to do whatever they want to do. He's quite supportive of it. Like it came across and obviously that could be sort of to get on fans' good side. But I think you're seeing that, like, people talk about Klopp's reaction and a lot of the managers and players. I think a lot of the Liverpool players came out posting things. I think they really are like saying as much as they can say, which is a credit to them, because it would be easy to just be like, I'm going to keep quiet on this and kind of let what happen. So yeah, it's all just a bit of a mess.
Tuchel was a bit like that. He was a bit disappointing, to be honest. When he came and spoke about it, he was but at the same time, you've got to also think that like this guy, he's in the hot seat at a team which just sacks their manager whenever they want to. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I have no doubts that if he would have spoken up, he would have got the immediate sacking. Just straight away. Like the camera cuts off. Breaking news: Tuchel is sacked. So I think Klopp has a lot more power. So I think that he could kind of say that it's a bit crap and not just get immediately in trouble.
With Klopp is that if he left and everyone knew it would be because of the owners, there would be it would be bigger than the Super League.
Yeah.
He's Liverpool.
They would need more than just a bloke in a gilet coming out and reading paper.
He's not like Klopp in terms of like figures in Liverpool is getting to like Paisley, Shankly level in terms of not in what he like built, but in terms of just the adoration he has from fans. I like, so I think if he was forced out, it's like with Abramovich. There's not that connection between. I don't think between like those sort of managers, because you change your manager so often. I just don't think it's the same.
Well, the only manager he had it was Lampard, and that's why it was. That's why it was. And then he just got sacked when we had 10 bad games. I mean, fair enough. The sack looks maybe a good decision. Now we're going to be champions of Europe in a couple of weeks' time. So. But yeah, I know. I totally get your point. I think it was difficult for the players and the managers to kind of come out and actually say something, because they are obviously under contract, their employers and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to bring up as well. Earlier on you mentioned like putting out these transfer stories and stuff like that to try and distract. Biggest distraction technique of them all, which we haven't even mentioned. Mourinho's gone.
Oh.
That was just, we were talking before about how crazy the 72 hours were. You're just refreshing and there's a new thing, like this person said this, they've left the ECA. I'm just going through like, okay, this is pretty mad Super League stuff. And it's just Mourinho's been sacked. And then it was gone. And it was like, I watched the Monday Night Football and they were like, there is Liverpool Leeds tonight. Mourinho's been sacked, but we're not going to talk about it. And it's just like, it's unreal. But I didn't even clock for about a day that it's the Carabao Cup final. Like, this week, so it's obviously a huge call, and supposedly it's purely unrelated from the Super League. Where do you guys think? I mean, you could ask, was this a success? This move for Tottenham that a lot of people criticised. Clearly, I don't think it has been. What do you make of it? Do you think it was a case of get him out before he wins the Carabao?
What, the Mourinho experiment?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was also, I've got to say, did you see the video of him outside his house unloading the pictures?
Yeah.
Him lifting all these.
That was so good. I loved it.
I did find it amazing that Mourinho getting sacked was not the most important, not even the second, but the third most important story on the day when there was the Super League, the Champions League reform, and then Mourinho was the least important. But I did think it was I think, to be honest, I don't think it's entirely surprising that they sacked him before the final. I don't even think it's a bad decision. And I know that you say, oh, you hire Mourinho to come in and win the trophies. But I'm not going to lie. I doubt when they appointed him, they said, let's win the Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
It's not like you win the Carabao Cup and it's all great. Like, we've watched months and months of garbage football and like disappointing performance after disappointing performance. And now he's won the Carabao Cup. We're all going to be like, great finish to the season, lads. You know what I mean? I don't know what you think.
How likely do you think it is Ryan Mason lifts the trophy and it'll be his second game?
He's 7 years older than us. He's 7 years older than us. To think, lads, in 7 years you could be lifting the Carabao Cup.
I'm gonna see Harry managing Chelsea.
No, I'll be managing Lewis FC, mate. I'm switching teams to my local.
How do you guys see that cup final going? Do you think Man City? I mean, Man City have been on the ropes recently. I mean, it was Leeds 2 weeks ago. They have a game more recent. Yeah, they won this week. They won this weekend, but they got John Stones' red card. I was talking to my flatmate about this. Is it a whole domestic ban now? Because we were saying we think it's changed now so that it doesn't count. Because no one said, "Oh, John Stones is out the cup final." So is it only Premier League now?
I think it's.
We weren't sure.
Not
sure about that actually. Should we just look up? Will John Stones be banned?
No, he is definitely banned for the final.
Is he?
Yeah, he's definitely banned for the final. I'm not going to predict who's going to win that game because last time I was saying, "Oh, listen back to the pod after Ronaldo was going to score a hat trick against Porto," so I'm not going to do predictions again.
I won't go for a scoreline, but I do think Man City. I mean, stories came out as well that Kane missed training today, having not played their game the other day against Southampton. So we're all in sort of agreement though. He's probably going to get put out on that pitch, even if he is half a leg. But I just don't think it's going to happen for them. I hope it doesn't, but I don't. I mean, even if it does, like you say, like one, you don't want to win the Carabao
like it's obviously the trophy you don't want to win for anyone, like of all of them. But I think for Tottenham especially, because that's the only one they've won recently, or somewhat recently, it's kind of like people will be like, okay, you won, but it was only that. Like for them, I reckon they definitely wanted something bigger to kind of put those demons to rest. But that'll be a good game. You think Spurs are going to win?
Yeah, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say Alderweireld and Son 2-1.
Oh, God.
Alderweireld fix. He's quite often not fit this season. I need to check he's actually fit.
Eric Dyer screamer, mate, to win it outside the box free kick. No chance. I'm predicting a City win. I think they'll respond after that Chelsea FA Cup semi-final.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a good thing to mention. I've got another Chelsea friend I was messaging before it, and I was saying Man City are weird in these. Obviously, they've basically owned the Carabao Cup, but the FA Cup, I think they've won a couple. But obviously, Arsenal have won quite a few in there.
Like under Pep,
I think they've won. Under Pep, I think they've won one. I think they've won two sort of recently. But we've beaten them in two semi-finals, and both of those times, obviously, they were way better than us on paper. They do just have this thing in semi-finals of the FA Cup specifically to sort of falter, and it came to fruition for you, Harry. How do you see this FA Cup? Because I saw some people saying that last year when you lost the final, Chelsea fans were playing it's just the FA Cup card. Are you of that thought process, or are you yeah, it's a trophy, it's the FA Cup, you want it?
I mean, of course, I think of all the domestic cup competitions out of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, you'd definitely rather have the FA Cup, wouldn't you? But at the same time, you don't just want to be a little cup team that bounces in the FA Cup. You want to be a team that, is in the top ends of the league, who's, going the distance in the Champions League and looks like a very possible chance of winning that, I think. But no, I will not be. The FA Cup is now suddenly an amazing trophy if we win it. I still want us to be fighting on other fronts. So, but Chelsea played well against City. I thought they had a really good game plan, but City were also pretty disappointing.
Apart from the Carabao, if you win one of the other trophies, you've had a good season. Like you've picked up a trophy, you've done something.
Yeah, I think it's a good season, but you don't want to get into that habit of just being content with. This works for Arsenal especially. You don't want to get in this. You don't want to get in the habit of being like, right, top four and the FA Cup, or the FA Cup is and that's it. You want to be pushing more. Do you know what I mean? And that's probably the frustration with the Arsenal owners, is that it's like they're always two players away from being a top team, but they only ever get one, and then leave it at that.
Mate, they never even get one.
Pepe's just been a brilliant signing as well, isn't he?
Nah, mate, he's picking up. But
he's been picking up for a year and a half.
Nah, mate, you talk about that. I had just because I'm not gonna allow this slander. I was talking to my flatmate, who's a Liverpool fan, about Naby Keita.
Oh.
He is not coming good. Like
he's garbage.
he was like no, next year. And I was like, mate, I've been there with Jack Wilshere, with Sturridge at Liverpool. So many players. It's just a shame. I don't know. Look, I think he's good, but the injuries are going to kill him.
It's not. You gave good examples there in terms of Sturridge and Wilshere. When Keita plays and he gets a few games on his belt, you can see it's there. He plays well, but
if he's fully fit next year, would you play him over Thiago?
If he's what?
If he's fully fit all of next year, him or Thiago?
Oh God, it's not the best choice between the two, is it? I don't
know. But
Curtis Jones. Play Curtis Jones instead.
Yeah, Curtis Jones. I prefer Curtis Jones, to be honest. But Keita, for your best ability, quality is your availability. You've got to be available. That's why Wijnaldum's been so invaluable for us, and it's going to be a big loss when we lose in this season.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Keita's a prime example of a player who's got the talent, but he just can't stay on the pitch. I mean, he finished he finished second a couple times in Bundesliga Player of the Year behind Lewandowski when he was in the Bundesliga. So he's got the talent. I mean,
oh yeah, no, I rated him at Leipzig, and then he joined you, and I didn't rate him.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
He's so injury prone. That's the issue. You can't get.
Yeah, no, it is a shame, but I I was not having it for my flatmate.
I remember when he joined, it was like, oh, he's better. He can be better defensively than Kante and also contribute attacking. And
yeah, that's just you're reading dodgy Chelsea fan forums, mate.
Yeah, of course it is, mate. Yeah, but I did see obviously when he played against Real Madrid, he was so bad he had to get hooked off at half time, getting out.
Tell you what, I'm not having that. I'm not having that because he was actually our most lively midfielder. They only took him off because there was no balance. He actually played the best in midfield for that first 45.
He was just running. He was just running like a headless chicken.
Any move into the final third in that first half, everyone else was rubbish.
We picked a pretty bad guess to get on that because pretty much everything's rosy for Harry at the moment in Chelsea. We're an absolute mess, and we're
not even doing that bad.
You're on the border of a mess if you don't get top 4.
Not even that much of a mess, to be honest.
Champions to Europa League in 1 year.
Oh, no big deal. Yeah, it's a terrible season for you, man.
We'll win the Prem next year if we get all our players back.
Do you think?
Wow, do you think you're going to sign anyone? Say Van Dijk. Obviously, Van Dijk will be back. Wijnaldum's going. Assuming everyone else stays, maybe you'll lose one of the front three. Where do you think you want to see improvement? We're
going to sign a centre back. It's going to be Canate or Kabak.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be a striker coming in, and I imagine he's going to bring in someone. Unless
do you think there's going to be a striker, as in a new first team or a backup?
No, a first team player capable of stepping in. Because there needs to be. I mean, Firmino does good. I mean, we saw against Madrid, Firmino does a good role. He worked better against Madrid than Jota did because he can hold up the ball really well and pass out of that sort of 10 position. But he's going to bring a forward in then, let's say. It doesn't matter who it is because it needs a bit of a refresh, let's be honest. And then I'd be surprised if he didn't bring in a midfielder just because Wijnaldum's going and he needs someone who's going to be there who hasn't got any forward.
He's looked a bit off the pace, Wijnaldum, I think, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he played pretty well against Madrid, but I get what you mean. But to be honest, I don't blame him. He plays every blimmin' game. He plays more games than anyone in the team. Like he's played I think I can remember like once he hasn't started this season. So
yeah, it does. It shows how much the management and the club side value players like Naby Keita, doesn't it? That do anything but play him.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like if you can't stay on the pitch, it's your best quality. You have to be available.
Yeah. Harry, how about you? Do you think? I mean, Chelsea are just off the back of a transfer ban where they could only spend 100 million or so. They then got out of the transfer ban and basically broke the market. Do you think they're going to go back in again this summer? And
what a surprise!
Where do you want to see investment in your team?
I don't know. The investment thing does kind of just gross me out at the minute. We've just had like money just flying around so much, but from like an actual on the pitch point of view, I think there's going to be quite a few players that are going to leave. Like Jorginho has been chatting up about how he wants to go, and like Alonso or Emerson will go, and one of the three centre backs will go.
Abraham's gone.
Oh yeah, it's a shame about Abraham going. To be honest, I think that's the only area where I haven't really been happy with Tuchel. We didn't really give him a chance. He's still our top scorer.
Where do you think he's a good fit? Because I've seen a few names floated around.
Brighton, bring him down to Brighton.
I think he's too good for Brighton. I really do. I think there's a really good player in there. I think West Ham would do well to get him.
Really at Brighton though. I think he'd be so good in that system.
I think I don't know if I was listening to something about this or talking to someone about it, but we were talking about this Tammy Abraham thing, and it's like a lot of Premier League teams have their striker like fairly settled right now. Like Leicester have got Iheanacho Vardy. I think Southampton could be an option if Ings goes, which is talked about. But I think in terms of wanting a striker, you've got Brighton who have this XG joke that they just need a goal scorer. But I think West Ham is just such a shout. Like they've tried to buy a striker for so long now, and Antonio's done a good job. But especially if they are challenging for top 4, like staying in London, I do think West Ham.
I think West Ham is perfect for him. Perfect level as well. I think he's too good. I'd be honest, I think he's too good to play for a team like Southampton or kind of, I think he's a player who is almost good enough to be challenging, a striker challenging for those kind of higher positions in the table. He's almost there. It just needs a whole season of getting 20 goals, which I think he's got in him. So,
yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. That'll be good. Hopefully, we'll buy a striker as well soon. So,
do you think there's an? I don't think this will happen. But a lot of talk about Arsenal strike situation with Aubameyang dropping and Lacazette maybe leaving and Kay is leaving. Do you think if he? I don't think it will happen. But if he made the move to Arsenal, do you think? How would you think your fans would see him? Do you think they would sort of be like, yeah, you didn't have your chance, fair enough?
I'll be honest. I think that you've with an academy player. I mean, personally, from my point of view, I wouldn't be like, oh, well, I would prefer if he didn't go to a rival club. You really would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because he's good enough to come bite you back in the arse. You know what I mean? Really. Yeah. Like him do a winner and do the Drogba celebration. I can just see it now. Do you know what I mean? Like he did when he scored in that 2-1 game when we played you a while ago.
That was a joke,
by the way.
That game.
But I wouldn't want to see him go to a rival. But when you have that academy players, you do want to see them do well. And I think he's been unfairly treated. So I wouldn't blame him if he kind of went to another team in the Premier League and did well. Just preferably not scoring a last-minute winner against us next season.
Is there any talk on like Giroud? Like, is he expected to stay another year?
I mean, I don't know.
He just seems to hang around, and then for about 10 games a season, he's unplayable. Yeah, and then he goes again, and comes back in a bit.
They clearly don't really want him there. But he played well enough to get another year contract and think that he might get a bit of a look in. But he's not really getting. They're really enjoying this kind of false nine with Havertz thing and Werner on the big games against the high line, and then Ziyech or Mount or whatever. So
Havertz played at Leverkusen, wasn't it, in the latter part of last year?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a lot of the Bundesliga when it came back, and I really liked Havertz in that false nine role.
He's improving a lot.
Yeah.
Which one game? He didn't play well in his last one, I think, but he played really well in one game.
Palace.
He scored, was that? Yeah. I mean, Palace awful.
He nearly scored some Bergkamp goal. Like, it was coming over his shoulder, flicked it over, and it was so close. You know what I mean? But hopefully it'll come good. You know that 70 million will eventually not be down the drain. You don't want another Pepe kind of thing. You want an attacking player who contributes on the pitch in the top leagues, not just against in the Europa League.
Just gonna ignore that. I'm not gonna rise to it. Obviously we've covered quite a lot. I think our feelings are all pretty clear on the European Super League, as with pretty much everyone in football. I don't think I saw a single tweet. I'm sure there are people out there, but I don't think I saw a single tweet that was seriously like probably backing it.
The only ones in favour were bots. It was bots in people's replies. See it. It was just the same messages. And it was like, oh, right, okay. It's a good thing. Okay. Sure.
Do we want to cover anything else? I think we've done, obviously, the new format. I think, so we're basically as well, we're saying new format is not good. We don't like it.
No, bad.
Do you think it's likely? I think we did briefly touch on this, but what do you think the chances are it gets changed at least?
I think there needs. Look, it's quite clear that the top clubs are in a lot of debt, especially in Italy and Spain, and they need to find more ways of being able to fund, these crazy wages and big transfers. But it's just finding a way to do that in a way that it doesn't compromise the values of competition and sport and stuff like that. And stuff that we think is important about football. So I think that inevitably there will be changes, and I think there will be a lot of changes that we don't like. But the reality is, teams like Real Madrid and Barca are in like millions, hundreds of millions of pounds of debt.
So Klopp spoke this morning. I'll quote it. So he spoke to UEFA. He basically said he didn't like it. He spoke to them for an hour about the new Champions League, and he said there's basically 10 more games. How are we going to fit them in? And the only people who never get asked are the coaches, players, and supporters, and we're already on the edge, which I think is fair enough.
Yeah,
what everyone's thinking about it. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if more managers don't. I know Klopp is notorious for speaking up against the schedule, but I think I'd be surprised.
Pep will.
Yeah, Pep should. Pep was quite good in the whole situation, to be fair.
And they're the ones that really matter as well. I think what Ancelotti said about the American thing about them trying to make the Super League was quite good. He said that in America there's more entertainment sport, but in Europe we live with a passion at the result. it's true, football now is sport and business, but you have to take into consideration both, not only business, because football's a sport first. So you got to think about the other stakeholders, and like it's not just the owners and the guys who are in debt, but also the fans. And what Klopp was saying, all the managers and players need to be actually like asked about it rather than just bam, because the reform to the Champions League wasn't it introduced on the back of the Super League thing while it was all happening.
It was introduced before, but the sort of like confirmation of it was around the same time, I think.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like they were using it all as bargaining chips, and like actually quickly we'll implementing it so the top six don't all piss off, do you know what I mean, or don't all go away. So it did kind of feel a bit disappointing.
UEFA and FIFA trying to take the moral high ground. I mean, come on, give me.
Yeah, FIFA especially for me. I don't like. Yeah, they're the worst.
Yeah.
But it was also on that weekend that it was meant to be the anti-racism stuff.
Yeah.
What Patrick Bamford, what he said after the Leeds Liverpool game was really good, but it was like that whole weekend was meant to be this big anti-racism thing, and they released it on that day and it just like completely undid all the work that they've been doing.
Yeah.
Saying like, all the work anti-Semitism stuff Chelsea are doing and the community stuff. It just was like, suddenly an example of the fact that they're not listening to people. So,
yeah, I think Aubameyang, I don't know if you saw, briefly sort of came off Twitter because I think he posted something.
I saw his tweet.
I think there was a thing about he posted something in the day. There was one thing about like gaming, I think, but then there's another thing about racism, effectively, and people were like, "Why aren't you talking about the Super League? Why aren't you standing up to it?" And he was just like, look, the Super League's important. Getting football back is important, but racism is like such a bigger thing. And I even saw this joke tweet, which is just ridiculous.
I saw it.
That was like, what's the bigger issue or something? And it was like, oh no, if you get rid of one of them, what would it be? Super League, VAR, or racism? Which is just like, it's just absurd to think that people can like even.
Yeah, it was an actual legit tweet as well.
Yeah.
It's sad though, because you can see how much action and outrage is provoked by this Super League. Especially another thing wrong with UEFA was the fact that thing with the 10-game ban for the player who racially playing Kamara. And it was like, what? So you're going to do a 10-game ban for a racism player, but players who don't want to play in your league are going to never play in the World Cup or in their, competitions. It's just like complete disparity of like, treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's been a good podcast, I think. A lot to cover. Heavy week. I think it's good because I think I saw a lot of people doing emergency podcasts on the day all the news came out, and they all gave their opinion and were going crazy at the clubs. And then, like, obviously they're still in the wrong, but then the next day they were like, "Oh, we've got to do an emergency podcast and talk about how it's gone back."
Yeah.
So good to let everything happen. Hopefully we've got a good few years now where this whole Super League business can stay away, but honestly, who knows at the moment?
Perez will be back. He will be back.
Well, he'll be waiting.
Yeah.
And, but it's good. It's good that you got a Chelsea fan on as well, because Chelsea were the saviours. I mean, we've saved football with a chance outside Stamford Bridge.
I don't want to sort of like make a competition, but I don't know if you saw the poll of percentage of clubs fans who disagreed with the decision.
Yeah,
Arsenal had for like 5% agreed with it. It was 5% agreed with it, and then do you see this? Juventus, 52% of fans agreed with it.
Oh,
but then like basically everyone else was about the 20s. But the point is, Arsenal. And you got to bear in mind with that, one, it's respectable regardless. We're the ones who need it the most. Like, we're the one who could do with some financial security of being in Europe. And even then, it's all about class. That's the thing with Arsenal.
To be fair, it should have been Leicester and Forest in instead of Arsenal and Tottenham. So.
Yeah, agreed.
Mate, final thing to turn the pod on. All it took was Arteta 2 years to get us back to the European elite. That's all that matters. But we'll end it there. It's been really good having Harry back on. Hopefully something big happens in football the next few weeks that isn't quite as bad, but we can still talk about it and get Harry back on.
One thing before we go. The parting Executive Vice Chairman Ed Woodward was involved in plans for Super League from day one, says Premier League Club Chief Executive.
Yeah, this talk that he was sacked because he didn't agree, he left because he believed in the football pyramid and hated it. Everyone was just like, yeah, all right then.
Please, come on.
The Glazers had to sacrifice someone.
Yeah, they threw him out as well.
I mean, Harry, you said before we were talking about. I was kind of like, I was kind of annoying that he's gone though, because technically it's a good thing for United fans, and you're completely right. Someone else just as bad or worse is gonna come in.
There'll be some worm kind of slime into that sort of position again. You know what I mean?
But yeah, basically things aren't good for the top six. But if anything more comes of it, we'll be out with another podcast talking about it. But like I said, hopefully that's the last of that for a while. Like I said, thanks for coming on, Harry. We'll be back next week. We'll be back to having a new guest on and asking him the football story questions. So thanks a lot for listening, and we will talk to you next week.